Alright, I know what you're thinking. 2025 fantasy football? That feels ages away. But here's the thing, the people who really crush their leagues? They start thinking way earlier than everyone else. So what if you could get a sneak peek right now into how those early rounds might shake out? We're not talking about wild guesses. We're talking about a solid game plan, a way to get a leg up that your league mates just won't see coming. Seriously, stop for a second. Did you know that in a ton of early 2025 PPR mock drafts, something pretty wild is happening? We're seeing 6, sometimes even 7 or 8 wide receivers go in the top 12 picks. That's huge. If your early draft strategy isn't already thinking about that, you're falling behind. But what if you had the inside scoop on this new reality before everyone else scrambles to figure it out? The what-if premise. Imagine this, you walk into your draft, feeling like you've got the ultimate cheat sheet. What if you already knew where the experts are leaning, which players they're consistently snagging early, and the big picture strategies that are already starting to take shape for 2025? This isn't just about a list of names, it's about understanding why players are going where they are. It's like having the early blueprint for those crucial first few rounds, you know, where you either build a championship team or, well, you don't. Getting this insight now, this early, gives you a massive head start to plan, to mock, and to build a rock-solid understanding that'll make you feel unshakable on draft day. So, how are we figuring this out? We're not just pulling names out of a hat. We've really dug into a bunch of expert mock drafts for 2025, especially for PPR and half PPR formats, since those are super common these days. We've matched those up with early average draft position, ADP trends from different platforms, and soaked up what the big-name analysts are saying in their initial rankings. By putting all this expert opinion, mock draft data, and early numbers together, we can give you more than just a possible draft order. We can show you the thinking behind it. Think of this as your first real in-depth look at what the 2025 fantasy football scene might look like. The first thing that smacks you in the face when you look at early 2025 mock drafts is just how many wide receivers are going in the first round, especially in PPR. This isn't just a little blip, it's a big deal. Our research shows that guys like Ja'Marr Chase and CeeDee Lamb are often getting picked before even top running backs because they see so many targets, week in and week out. One expert mock even had Ja'Marr Chase as the #1 overall pick. This receiver rush in the early rounds means if you're picking in the top half of the first, you're really going to feel the heat to grab an elite pass catcher. Passing on a guy who could see 150-plus targets? That's a tough pill to swallow. But hold on, top running backs haven't vanished. Not at all. Players like Jahmyr Gibbs, Bijan Robinson, and Saquon Barkley are still very much in that top 5 or top 6 conversation in many expert mocks. Why? Because they can carry the load, and in Gibbs' case, he's a threat in the run and pass game. So the pattern emerging is like this. There's a clear top group of wideouts, and right behind them, a small group of running backs who can do it all. Another thing we're noticing is a really special tight end making early waves. Brock Bowers, even as a rookie, is consistently popping up at the end of the first round or early second in these mocks. That tells you a lot about his rare talent and the fact that he could immediately be a top 5 player at his position. And that's gold in a spot that often lacks consistent stars. Let's break down a typical early 2025 12-team PPR mock draft to see these ideas in action. The research we looked at had one, and it's pretty revealing. At pick 1, Jahmyr Gibbs, RB, Detroit Lions. This might catch some off guard who expect a receiver, but Gibbs is so explosive and does everything in that high-powered Lions offense, giving him a massive ceiling. He's a touchdown threat every time he touches the ball. Some stats even had him as the RB2 in fantasy points per game last season. At pick 2, Ja'Marr Chase, WR, Cincinnati Bengals. Often talked about as the #1 overall pick in PPR, Chase is the real deal, elite production, tons of targets, and a knack for finding the end zone. He's young, has a great QB, and just consistently puts up huge numbers. One report even mentioned him outscoring every other WR by 86 PPR points in a recent season. At pick 3, Justin Jefferson, WR, Minnesota Vikings. Even with some QB questions, Jefferson's talent is off the charts. He's shown he can produce with anyone throwing him the ball, and his ability to get open and make tough catches keeps him as a top-tier WR1. At pick 4, Bijan Robinson, RB, Atlanta Falcons. The excitement for Bijan is sky high, and it's easy to see why. He's got the potential to be a true workhorse in what should be a run-focused offense. His skills as both a runner and receiver make him one of the safest RB bets with huge potential. At pick 5, Saquon Barkley, RB, Philadelphia Eagles. Now an Eagle, Barkley joins one of the best rushing attacks in the league behind a fantastic offensive line. If he stays healthy, his upside is enormous, making him a top RB1 target. At pick 6, CeeDee Lamb, WR, Dallas Cowboys. Lamb gets so many targets, and in PPR, that's incredibly valuable. With Dak Prescott healthy, Lamb is the clear #1 option for the Cowboys and a consistently elite fantasy producer. One source even said he led the league with 181 total targets recently. At pick 7, Puka Nacua, WR, Los Angeles Rams. After that monster rookie season, Nacua has shown he's a top-flight fantasy receiver. His chemistry with Matthew Stafford in Sean McVay's offense looks like it's built to last. At pick 8, Amon-Ra St. Brown, WR, Detroit Lions. Another guy who just eats up targets, St. Brown is a PPR dream. He gets consistent looks and is involved in the red zone, making him a super safe WR1 with room for even more. At pick 9, Brian Thomas Jr., WR, Jacksonville Jaguars. This might seem a bit high for a rookie, but it shows you how much experts think of his talent and the chance he has to make a quick impact in Jacksonville. They're clearly expecting big things from him right away. At pick 10, Nico Collins, WR, Houston Texans. Collins had a huge breakout year and showed he can be a dominant receiver. With CJ Stroud throwing him the ball, Collins looks set for more WR1 numbers. At pick 11, Malik Neighbors, WR, New York Giants. Another rookie receiver getting a lot of buzz. Neighbors is expected to be the main guy in the Giants' passing game. His talent is obvious, and some projections have him as a top receiver overall. At pick 12, Brock Bowers, TE, Las Vegas Raiders. Like we said, Bowers is a special talent. It's not often you see a rookie tight end go this high, but people think his impact will be big enough to justify a first-round pick, especially in leagues that might favor tight ends or where the talent drops off quickly after the top guys. So what does this all tell us? The early first round is definitely leaning heavily towards wide receivers who see a ton of targets. But if one of those truly game-changing running backs is still on the board, they get picked up fast. The main idea is clear: get a foundational player with massive upside. Okay, so after the first round, knowing your positional priorities is key for those early to mid rounds. Running backs, even with the receiver rush, running backs are still super important because good ones are hard to find and they get a lot of work. If you don't grab one of the top guys in the first, you'll start feeling the pressure. The robust RB strategy, taking 2 RBs in the first 3 rounds, can still work, especially in non-PPR or half PPR, because it helps you lock down a position that gets thin fast. But be careful of the RB dead zone, usually rounds 3 to 6, where RBs taken tend to bust more often. That's why getting elite talent early, or waiting for specific guys you like later, is a smart move. You'll probably want 5 to 7 RBs on your roster by the end. Wide receivers. In PPR leagues, like we've seen, great WRs are like gold. People talk about how deep WR is, but the truly elite difference makers? They're still worth grabbing early. A lot of winning strategies involve loading up on WRs in the early rounds because they score consistently and get hurt less often than RBs. Aiming for 5 to 8 WRs total, depending on your league setup, is a good plan. The research shows that having 3 WRs by the end of round 5 is a pretty common goal. Tight ends. The general thinking here is to wait unless a real game changer like Brock Bowers is available at a price you just can't say no to. After the top tier, which might include Bowers and maybe someone like Trey McBride, who was the second TE off the board around pick 2.09 in one mock, the production often evens out. It's usually better to take a shot on tight ends with upside in the mid to late rounds, rather than reaching for one early if you miss out on the top guys. Quarterbacks. Unless you're in a superflex league or one that really inflates QB scoring, most people will tell you to wait on a quarterback. There are enough good QBs that you can find a solid starter in the mid-rounds, think rounds 5 to 8. Sure, elite QBs like Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes give you a weekly edge, but grabbing them early means you miss out on top RBs or WRs. It's all about finding the best value. If a top QB falls way past where he should go, then grab him. Otherwise, be patient. Kickers and defenses. This one's easy and pretty much everyone agrees. Wait until the very end. These positions are the hardest to predict year to year, and playing the matchups by streaming is often the best way to go. Figuring out the draft order early also means spotting players whose current buzz might not line up with how they actually perform. Ashton Jeanty, RB, potentially Raiders. Based on some older research, the research pointed to Jeanty as a rookie who could be a 3-down back with an immediate chance to play, making him a great sleeper, especially if his draft price doesn't shoot up too fast. Some analysts thought he was the best player in college football with NFL-ready skills. Jaden Reed, WR. Packers. Reed showed some really promising signs of being a go-to guy in Green Bay. If his role gets bigger, he could easily outperform where he's drafted. Tyler Warren, TE. Team may vary based on drafts, e.g., Steelers or Colts mentioned as a rookie TE with potential. He's the kind of late-round pick that could surprise people. Cooper Kupp, WR. Rams with Puka Nacua stealing the show. If Kupp slides in drafts because of his age or past injuries, he could be a great value as a veteran bounce-back. Wan'Dale Robinson, WR. Giants. He saw a lot of targets last season. If the Giants' QB situation improves, he could be a high-volume guy in PPR leagues and might be undervalued early on. DK Metcalf, WR. Steelers. The big worry here, mentioned by a few sources, is Pittsburgh's shaky QB situation. That could really hurt Metcalf's numbers, making him a risky pick if he's taken too early just based on his name. One projection even had him outside the top 35 WRs. Tyreek Hill, WR. Dolphins. Hill is now 31. And age starts to become a factor. His game is all about that incredible speed, which can disappear quickly. If you draft him as a top-tier WR1, he could end up being a pick that loses you your league. Karen Williams, RB. Rams. Even though he's produced in the past, there are some warning signs like his yards per carry going down and a high fumble rate. He might not be the superstar playmaker some are expecting. Remember, value all depends on where players are being drafted, their ADP. Keep an eye on how player values change as we get closer to draft season. Key takeaways, your early draft blueprint. So, what are the big takeaways for your early 2025 fantasy draft? Get ready for the wide receiver wave in PPR. In PPR formats, elite wide receivers are huge in the early first round. Don't be scared to go WR if the best players available are wideouts. Those targets are just too important. Grab elite talent early, no matter the position. Whether it's one of the top 3 to 4 running backs or a top 5 to 6 wide receiver, your first-round pick, and often your second, should be about getting a player who can be truly special, but also has a pretty safe floor. Know your tiers, and when scarcity hits, understand when the talent level drops off at positions like RB and TE. If you miss out on the top tight ends, for example, be ready to wait and look for upside later. Always draft for value. Don't reach for a player just because you need that position. Always try to get the best player available at your pick. This often means being flexible and ready to change your plan if a great player you weren't expecting falls to you. Mock, and mock some more. What we've talked about today is just a starting point. Use mock draft simulators to try out these strategies from different draft spots and see how your team looks. That's where you'll really get good at adjusting and finding those hidden gems. Hopefully, this early look gives you a big head start on your 2025 fantasy football prep. But things are always changing. What are your bold predictions for the early rounds of 2025? Who do you think is a player just waiting to have a massive season? Let me know your early targets and thoughts in the comments below. If you found this early look at the 2025 fantasy draft helpful, do me a solid, hit that like button, and make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. We'll be dropping more 2025 fantasy content all off-season, mid-round sleepers, late-round flyers, and updated strategy guides as news comes out. You don't want to miss out on the info that could help you dominate your league. Thanks for watching, and let's get ready to win in 2025.